Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show, and today I have one of my sponsors in Borealis Mining on to for the show. And what really impresses me about Borealis is they're my favorite pick when it comes to a company that has started as a private company and then recently went public. In my 30 years of working in this business, I have never seen a private turned public junior as well prepared for success as Borealis. And it's a combination of high quality project enabled them to build a strong board of directors prior to going public. They were able to raise a bunch of money as a private company, which is another good thing that you don't see very often. And then they were able to take the company public. But before taking the company public, they were able to their vendor of the project in Nevada was Waterton, and Waterton is notorious for blowing out stock in their partners because they're divesting their fund, closing it. And this project is so good that Rob McEwen decided that he wanted to take all of Waterton's stock out of them. So that's another good sign because Rob McEwen is a legend in the mining business, and so there you go. That's sort of my reasons why I'm happy to have Borealis as a sponsor and a pick, and Kelly Malcolm as a good friend of the show. Kelly, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, buddy. Really appreciate it again. Always great to be here.
Kelly, something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is I spent, I've been in this business 30 years, and over that time, I went to a lot of these mining conferences. And what I would see is the speaker hall over here and the companies over here in an exhibit. And the speakers were the stars of the show and what everything was marketed around. And sometimes I was one of those speakers, but that room would fill up, and then the investors would spend less time with the companies. And I actually think that's kind of backwards, Kelly, because yeah, those people that follow the market, they're some of them are really good stock pickers, some of them not so good, some of them are good at looking at trends, some of
Yep.
them not so good. But what I really think those investors were losing the opportunity was is that these mining company executives, such as yourself, have a lot of experience in with rocks and stocks, and investors can learn a lot. So I've tried to been kind of changing up some of my format of my show, and today I wanted to talk to you about your experience and how that can apply to investors and also the Borealis story.
Cool. Happy. That sounds fun. A little mix up from the norm. So very happy to dig in, buddy.
Yeah, okay. So, well, let's talk about some of your experiences. You started out, cut your teeth at one of Canada's greatest gold mines, Detour Lake, and you also then left there to be the VP Exploration at Amex, where you found a bunch of ounces of gold in Quebec, and it looks like it's going to be one of Quebec's new exciting gold mines. But then a couple of years ago, I guess you started to want to take the reins of your own deal, and Borealis started to come together. Is that how some of your trajectory?
Yeah, that those are the main ones. The one that you're missing though is in between Detour and Amex. For a couple of years, I went deep into the junior market realm, and I started advising two Toronto financial firms on geological projects and investment opportunities and potential there, purely on a geological basis, not on a stock basis, really. Just look at this asset, look at this one. What do you think of that? What do you think of this? Why do you like it? Why don't you like it? how are these results? How do they stack up to XYZ? Could it be the next? And half the time they are not the next, but one of the ones that was the next was Amex, and that's kind of how that all came to fruition. I
Oh,
ended up involved with a little junior, focused on the Yukon in the interim, and on the board there alongside me was Victor Cantori from Amex. So he started sending me stuff. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you look at
uh,
this? You want to go check out my project in Quebec? Go drive up, see what you think. Um, so yeah, the junior world is the really junior world, the sort of early stage stuff. You got to have a wide net and look at a lot of different projects and a lot of different opportunities.
I try
So
to be that net
yeah,
for my audience of at Rocks and Stocks, and that's
you do for
interesting,
sure.
Kelly. I didn't really know that you kind of had your foot on both sides of the street, if you will, the market side and the.
Yeah. And yeah, capital market side, and that's where I got a lot of relationships that kind of put us where we are today with our network and group and team and ability to raise capital. That all comes part and parcel.
So, what are some of your insights, Kelly, as to what you look for when you're looking at an exploration project that might be something that would help my audience of investors?
Sure. So I'll tell the opposite of what a geologist should say. Um, I used to just fall in love with projects and properties and the vast potential. Um, I've been burnt personally so many times by saying, well, but it's amazing. It has to go up. The property is going to deliver so many ounces or so much copper or whatever you have it, lithium, etc. Um, so the geology is paramount and has to be robust, has to be good and strong. But really the biggest lesson you learn, and that you really only learn this through losing money, is that people and structure are as important as a good asset, without question.
So you brought up something interesting there. Now, before I was in the business of talking about the market, I spent a lot of my career in working with a geological consulting firm in Vancouver.
Yep.
And what you just described there is a lot of geologists, they fall in love with the rocks and they don't really look at the stock side of things.
Mhm.
Another thing that I found is that they tend to look at everything in the context of their project. There's a very high profile geologist that I'm not going to name that everybody thinks is the rock star of rock stars.
Mhm.
And he and I used to talk to him about the projects that I was going to report on. And he poo-pooed Detour Lake when I was looking at it at $1. And that's the exact reason why, Kelly, is he was looking at his project and said, "Oh no, my project's much better." It's
Yeah.
very rare that you can actually, let's talk about that first, and then I'll talk about what I think is rare about what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, sure. That happens all the time. Like I missed a few really great opportunities, and we've talked about some of them. I don't want to share my embarrassments. But but you So number one, use your expertise, use your skills. So as a geologist, I would probably do the same as your friend. Um, if it was a completely unique thing, like Detour Lake was a unique, and it was a gold anomaly basically that they're mining. They're mining the wall rock around a gold vein system, which typically is the garbage and the waste. It's just the amount of that anomaly is so vast that it's now Canada's biggest gold mine, and will probably end up being one of Canada's greatest gold mines when all is said and done.
And I think that
Um,
the rock around the main zone, if you will, was permeable. So the gold could make its way into that rock and then spread out into something really huge. Because usually, like you said, it's tightly constrained around what was mineralized,
yeah,
the mineralizing event,
the
sorry.
mineralizing system was very powerful. It only had so many channels or areas to deposit veins, and a lot of that fluid got pushed into the rock and deposit it in the form of sulfides or within micas or on foliation plains. But it's a huge system. It'll be 10 kilometers by God knows how deep it'll go. It'll be one of the biggest pits in Canada for sure.
Wow. And it's just a monster. So that's one thing. Don't fall too much in love with the rocks. It's got to be the truth machine is what sets you free. It's a truth
Right.
machine that has to confirm what you're seeing in the rocks, because there's a perfect example. If you were looking for the main event that caused the mineralization, and said, well, oh, but this is over in the wall rock or the country rock, and it's not worth anything. I'm
Mhm.
only looking for this. That you have to have an open mind when it comes to rocks and what the truth machine is telling you.
And you got to pick your strategy too. Like you look at so Eric Sprott, yeah, he invests in a whole lot of companies, but he will not put a dollar, and he'll put a lot of dollars in once he starts putting them in, but he won't put a dollar in. And I can promise you, because I told him, presented many stories to him, um, won't put a dollar in until there's a good drill hole. So, like you said, the truth machine has to verify that there's some real juice, some real meat on the bone, and that's when he goes in, and when he goes hard, and really changes, oftentimes changes the outlook of the company and increases its ability to raise money at a less dilutive rate. But you look at a Rob McEwen, who sometimes doesn't necessarily need that hole. You can look at the geology and will sometimes take an earlier bet on a really interesting and intriguing geological play. Um, you look at some additional guys like Pierre Lassonde, for example, wants a clear evidence of a mine.
Yeah,
Sometimes he'll play in earlier stuff, but usually
not very
I
often.
want a pre-feasibility study or something robust that shows me, hey, this is going to make me lots of money. So you've
Yeah,
really got to
because
have your own strategy, right?
he's the most interested in that second part of the second wave of the Lassonde curve. Actually, what he's looking for is that sweet spot just before a project goes into production and runs up the right side of the Lassonde curve.
Hey, it's
So
named after him for a reason. He knows when to pick him.
yeah,
But yeah, you've got so that's one of the things too is know your risk level, know what your entry point is, and you can't chase everything.
yep.
Um, like I like early like personally in my own portfolio, I'm happy to gamble on pre-drill plays. Because I know that sometimes they can be spectacular, but you have to know that most of the time it's not going to be a big win, right? So,
So when you're
uh,
looking at a pre-discovery or a pre-drill hole play,
mhm.
what are you looking for, Kelly, when you put your money in?
Um, Geological prowess, 100%. Some anomaly of some sort. I'm never just going to put money into a piece of land that has
Yeah.
no. There could be something here that's far too early for me. Um,
There's
some
jurisdiction
some some
too.
sort of. Yeah, like if you look at the Yukon thing that I got involved in 2017, the project that I was most excited about was called Livingston. It's in the Livingston. This is a cool one. This is what drew me away from Detour Gold, actually, was it was in the Livingston Placer District, which is about 45-minute helicopter ride northeast of Whitehorse. It's an area that no one was working and it's host to some of the Yukon's biggest gold nuggets. It wasn't the most productive placer field, but it was host to big honking chunks of gold. And that tells you that there's the potential for it depends on your theory of how placer gold forms. Some people think it's nuggets eroded from quartz, other think that they grow in situ, but nonetheless, you've got to have a good source of gold to deliver those big fat gold nuggets.
It didn't
Uh,
come from outer space. It had to come from
It
somewhere.
came from up the hill from the creek,
Yeah.
but on top of that, so this was a this was a beautiful screaming go drill this right now. So huge gold nuggets below this hill, coming off of two or three creeks and tributaries coming off of this area at the top of the mountain.
Yep.
Um, the government had flown a VTEM survey, so there was this big screaming VTEM anomaly, literally right where there was up to 10 grams per ton gold sampled at surface,
Oh,
plus a bunch of gram plus or 100 1000 ppm plus gold in soils. Really nice structural framework, all the hallmarks of hey, you got to go drill this. So that kind of stuff got me really excited um, at the outset. So there's one example of what would get me really excited as an early stage thing because you want multi-parameter drill targets. You don't want to say, hey, look, I've got this huge anomaly of gravity or mag. Let's go poke a hole into it because single parameter targeting is really challenging.
so if I could put it into a package, I think there's some good things for people to learn there. In a pre-discovery play, Kelly is looking at it from layers. He's looking at the regional geology, he's looking at the gold in the rivers, he's talking about the geology, he's talking about the geophysics. It's all a series of layers, and that's how companies go about exploration, folks.
Yeah.
That is the same theory. So you're basically saying that it passed all those filters, and that's what you're really looking for if you're going to go into a grassroots pre-discovery drill hole play.
And the other thing is it's nice to be in an area where people are excited. At that time, white gold was on fire.
Ah,
They were doing great. The Yukon was hot. Victoria Gold was being built. So there was that too. Jurisdiction came into play as well. And unfortunately, we didn't find much there. We got a couple, I don't know, point 0.6 over a meter. It just didn't work out, unfortunately. But that's also the sad truth of the business is all these different things can say, holy mackerel, this is going to be amazing. Sometimes they just don't work out.
so if you were and you're not an advisor, but if you were giving people ideas, it sounds like if you're going to go into that, use those layers, and also you probably got to spread your bets pretty into a handful or a dozen different of that style
Yeah,
to have some.
at least like good luck. If you think you can hit 1 in 5, you're a smarter man than most or a smarter woman than most.
So maybe 20.
Yeah, look at like I think Rick Rule talks about that sometimes because he does play pretty early in the geological side of things, and yeah, I think he's 1 in 10. You hope for a big win, or 1 in 20 realistically. I don't know, but the returns outsized. Like look at MX for example, pre-discovery there, that was a 5 cent stock. Like Victor for a year or two was just buying stock in the market at 4 or 5 cents,
Wow.
just insider buy left, right, and center, and Discovery came out and that went from 5 cents to a buck 40 before pulling back to 75 and then going up to $4.19.
Wow.
Um, that's the power of Discovery is extreme compounded returns. Um, so yeah, you hope for a big one like that or GBR or there's Snowline Gold. That's a pure Discovery play. They've done a great job there.
Yep.
Uh, so all those things. Um, are important. And then on top
So,
of that, you got to look at people and what else they've done, what else they're doing. If you trust them is one of the big ones. You think money's going to be spent responsibly and respectfully and operate ethically and all that stuff.
well, you brought up a couple things there, Kelly, and one of them is that what I do is I do follow grassroots projects before discovery, but in this market for the last 20 years, I've been able to find my own little sweet spot, which is that I look at the early discovery holes. And because I'm fast on my feet and I have a pretty good analytical mind about what matters coming out of a drill hole, I've had pretty good success being able to spot things early. Amex was one of them.
Yeah, I think we
Osis,
did our first interview after like the third hole came out
yeah.
in about February maybe of 2019, and then our next one was with Victor at PDAC.
Yep, exactly. So Amex, Osisco in their Malartic was another one, and I won't go into all the ones, but that's what I do. I try to look at the early drill holes and assess. Like for example, when you were early into your Amex, I made a prediction to you very early that turned out to be accurate. Was I saw that it looked like the zones would keep going, and that it would have good continuity, and that is exactly what transpired with the high grade zone. So I try to not just look at the whole. I also try to look at it in the context of where do I think this can go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, you definitely do.
So Kelly, you also brought up some when we were talking earlier, I said what was rare. So I'm very fortunate that because I understand a little bit about rocks, I have a lot of what I call my rock friends, my rock geeks. And you know what I also find very rare is the ability for people that to look at a project on an individual basis, not comparing it to their own project. And I often hear investors, they'll go, well, this is better than that, or that is this, and blah, 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 which is why I try to look at a project just standalone. I don't compare it to anything else. I just look at, okay, someone asks me for my opinion on a project. I don't say, oh, well, it's better than this or that or another thing. I try to look at it on the merits. What do you think about that strategy?
It's the smart. It's very very smart. It's nice to have comps just so you again, we'll just harken back to Amex because it's easy and your audience knows it well. But um, the comp that was just adjacent to the Perron project is the Normantel mine.
Right.
Completely different geologically. It's a VMS deposit versus a high grade gold shoot. But the comp there is that this area can deliver deep structures and deep systems. So we
Right.
looked at it in that context. But looking at and I missed the boat on this one, but Great Bear, for example, looking at that in its own context, in contrast with looking at it in Red Lake context, which is what a lot of people did and missed out on that because they didn't really have the ultramafic rocks that were important. They didn't really have the similar D2 structures that are so important in Red Lake. They didn't have the intersecting faults that again are so important. They didn't have the what is it, the Balmer and Confederation
Yeah.
I can't remember
Assemblages,
the
rock
exact
packages.
terms. Yeah. But there's that fault that's delivered like 90% of the gold.
Yep.
And I looked and I was like, well, maybe there's some sniffs of gold. It can't be that big. And lo and behold, it's a 5+ million ounce gold deposit. So looking at that in isolation would have been a much smarter thing rather than comparing it to Goldcorp's early.
Others or
Or,
geology
exactly.
even in the area. Yeah, that's something that I learned because I would talk to a lot of rock guys and they would always and they would poo-poo other people's projects
Mhm.
because it was like, oh, mine is better. Well, I wasn't,
That's geologists for you. They're terrible for that.
yeah, but I wasn't
Especially
at,
executives of mining companies are like, well, that's okay, but have you looked at this? And that's not yeah, it's that's
that,
just
that's something
what it
that I
is.
learned a
Human
long
nature.
time ago too. And that's why I have that way of doing things, Kelly, is that I just want to look at this project. What are the geophysics telling me? What are the rocks telling me? What are the structures telling me? And ultimately, what are the drill holes telling me?
Mhm.
And and I don't really want to look at it in the context of this or that or what's going on. I
Yep.
look at it on its individual merits, and I think that that's something that helps out.
Well, and going to mining executives and asking about other projects, like going into a Toyota dealership and asking how the Honda Accord drives, and then be like, "Well, it's pretty good, even though it's the number one car in the world." But have you seen the Camry?
Yeah,
Um, So yeah, that's just going to happen. I think that's human nature too, a little bit, right?
It's interesting that you say that because one of the greatest investors in history was a guy named Peter Lynch. And Peter Lynch, he was the brains behind Fidelity Magellan. All
Yeah.
this Fidelity products started because of Peter Lynch. And he's a real, you would think that this guy's a big, sophisticated about everything, but he was really a sort of a down to earth analyst. And he said one of the things that he did was he would call up the company that he was interested in investing in, and he would ask them about their competitors. And he wanted to see how that person reacted to their competitors for insight into that company. What I'm getting at is if he went to XYZ company and said, ABC company, what do you think of them? If the XYZ guy
Was an
knew
automatic poo.
ABC company inside out and it could basically pitch him on the ABC deal, he knew that that guy knows his own company and
Yeah.
his
And the
competitors
competitors. Yeah.
inside out. And so some of the mining guy executives should read Peter Lynch's book called One Up on Wall Street, because they may get a better look on things knowing their competitors inside out.
Well, even just to, I follow, you and I talk a lot offline as well, Alan, but there pretty well any TSX story that's better than $10 million market cap in the gold space, I know enough to say, oh yeah, that's in XYZ and this guy's involved in it. But not,
Exactly.
but I actively and ardently follow the sector because you want to see how people are looking at things. You also, even just reading press releases, it's great to compare and contrast how you're operating with in the context of others. And I used to want to put in every bit of information possible into a release and make them 20 pages long, but it really the first page is what 90, even the first few sentences is what the vast majority of people read. Headline, numbers and quote, and you really start simple. Anyways, but it's a digression. But you do have to be aware of what others are doing, and not only that, but you should be congratulating others on successes rather than the opposite, which is what some people like to do. And I
Well,
think
that's
for the
something that
big
I think,
success is a really important thing for all of us because it draws people in and gets people excited about these big wins and the potential for big moves, right?
yep. Well, that brings up something that I consider I've been ever since I was in the business, I always look through news releases. You used to get the physical copy of the Northern Miner and every day at our office, and I would read through all the news releases every day. And I think investors should try to be connoisseurs of news releases. And one of the things that I look for, Kelly, is I can now look at a news release and I go, oh, the geologist wrote it and he's trying to impress other geologists. The lawyer wrote it, he's trying to impress other lawyers. The accountant wrote it, he's trying to impress other accountants. Very rare do I see where people are, well, not rare, actually, there's a lot now that are really good at taking the information and presenting it to their audience, which is investors,
Yeah.
not other geologists, not other, well, sometimes other geologists, accountants, and lawyers, but for the most part, 95% of the people reading that news release are investors that don't understand geological jargon. They don't understand accounting jargon. They don't understand lawyer jargon. They want to hear the story from the perspective of, are you writing for the investor?
Yeah. And that's where interviews are nice too because you can elaborate with a specific focus. Like you do a lot of deep dives into geology, which a lot of people like, and make it relatively easy for people to understand, which is also a really important skill. And then you do like I like the Crux. They do that. We did one for Amex that I thought was great, where they do a deep geological dive and they bring in a different consultant, not Matt, and they do a really in-depth look at your rocks and your package, and it's just a nice way for that audience to look at a different set of comments and topics surrounding the same company that they read the release and don't necessarily garner all that information from, right?
Awesome. So I think it's good to be aware of those things to get a sense of who's writing it. Do they speak to the investor out there? Because, that's what makes our business work. We need investors and they need to be written for, if you will. So Kelly, I now want to transition to talking about Borealis because it's kind of a case study of you're using all of your experience and you're building Borealis in a certain way. And so let's get into how you started Borealis and the foundation which I talk about. I've never seen a a junior private turn public that was as well built for success as you guys are. So talk a little bit about that, will you?
Yeah, sure. So the geology first. That's what we started looking at. Was the project. I got really intrigued by the historical drill holes, the bigger alteration package that was present, readily apparent as you've noted from even Google Earth, um, and widespread grab samples, soil samples across the project, along coupled with geophysical anomalies. So exploration wise, property checked all of my boxes. Um, the mine being there and being built and permitted certainly helped the cause and the case when we were
I'm going
looking
to
at the
interrupt
asset.
you there for a second, Kelly. That's something else I don't see very often. You can grow the company with two truth machines. The first truth machine is the drill core, but the
Yeah,
big truth machine is the mining. That's the ultimate truth machine. So,
yeah.
sorry for the interruption there.
No, 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 all good. But I agree, and I went um for my first site visit. I don't know, a long time ago now, coming up on 2 years, um, and was floored by the infrastructure in particular because there was some snow on the ground. I couldn't really see all the rocks that I wanted to see. But infrastructure wise, I was like, holy mackerel, this is amazing. And then came back again a month later or so, once the snow had gone, and then I was really like, wow, this is pretty special.
So the
Especially when you're with
infrastructure you're talking about, you could drive to it. It's got power. It's got an ADR plant. It's got a lab.
it was a mine. There's a security guard at the front door, and like, holy mackerel, this is different than what I'm used to working at. Certainly on the exploration stage, and certainly for a project that we had proposed buying for $5 million. I was like, this, it seems like the deal of the century. Um, so anyways, that
Hold
project
on,
first,
sorry, I hate interrupting people all
all
the time,
good.
but
Go ahead.
sometimes you say things that you kind of blow it, you kind of go past it really quick, but it's actually really interesting stuff for my audience. You said you were looking at it for 5 million. It had a mine, it had tailings, it had, I mean, it was worth more than that to replace the infrastructure it had.
Yeah,
And so why you got it is that your timing was pretty perfect.
yeah.
And tell us about why your timing was perfect.
We were early in the gold market. We started looking at it September, October 2022, and I have the gold price up literally as we speak. So let me see where it's trading. At that point,
Well, at that
yeah,
point
down around
also,
1600. So at
but
I was at the 5 year low.
the gold stocks were doing nothing at the time.
Yeah,
It was a bearish market, if you will.
100%. So yeah, just went in at an opportune time that the fund was winding down. We knew that, and we purposely kind of went lower on the bidding side of things, and it was accepted. And
So the
yeah,
fund is Waterton.
Yeah,
And Waterton is, they've actually compiled a bunch of great projects. And now they're trying to get rid of all of them. Sometimes they get stock in the deal, but they're ultimately trying to wind down that fund.
yeah,
And so when they get stock in a transaction, they blow it out into the market.
yeah. Yeah, they've been like certain transactions like Christina McCarthy's Paycor, they were good shareholders. He she they got an exit with Christina's help through I-80 Gold transaction. But yeah, many times they've been pretty hard on the market. And
So
that's the nature of
you,
their business too, right? They you want the asset, you kind of know what you're getting involved in, and we had known that, and that's why it was so great that Rob came in and cleaned up what would have been a future kind of headache with
hurdle.
13 million shares being sold into the market.
So in a nutshell, Waterton was trying to divest all their projects. The market was not very good for junior, well, even up to the majors. It was kind of a bear market for gold stocks. And so you opened the door to Waterton and looked at the project sort of at perfect timing to be able to get it for such an inexpensive price. I mean, it would cost you more to rebuild all the infrastructure.
Yep, it would. Absolutely.
So
So
that,
then yeah, that's then what we did. So like I said, project first, really good targets, really good growth profile, really good potential to make some money. And then built the team around the asset, raised the money, brought in really good shareholders, strong supportive people. Uh,
Kelly, you gotta give my audience more. You said build a team. Talk about your team, man.
sure. So we built, so this was the due diligence and looking at the project was done alongside myself and now the now COO Andreas and the VP Exploration Ian. So all three of us did our own deep dive into the rocks, the engineering, the marketability, the targets, etc.
And
And then
your
we
guys aren't just those three guys aren't you're not just guys that fell off the turnip truck. You all met at Detour Lake. One of them cut his teeth in the processing and not only did that for Detour, but also went on and did it for Cote Lake. So you've got a mine builder and operator there, and you're an exploration geologist, and then your other guy is kind of an expert at resource expansion and analysis, if you will.
yeah, I'm just trying to find um,
You got to remember, Kelly, not everybody remembers everything that's in your head.
oh, 100%. I was just looking. I have a picture of me and Ian and Andreas deep in the woods, but I can't find it right now, so I
So
won't show you.
you, Ian, and Andreas are the nucleus of the team. You're the ones that went out there, looked at the project, evaluated it, got it in the company, built the company, and you all kind of met as on the Detour Lake side of things early in your careers.
Yeah, and then we put our board together. It's really spectacular. I know we've talked about it on your show before, but led by Tony McCooch of Kirkland Lake Gold fame, Bob Buchan of Kinross Gold fame, Richard Patricio of Next Gen Energy Gold fame, Christina McCarthy of I-80 and Paycor Gold fame, as well as McEwen Mining. Um, Greg Gibson of Jarrett Canyon Mining, Trelawney Mining, Eric Sprott. I work directly for Sprott Mining, and Kelly Malcolm on the board level. So really strong group there. Shareholder registry
And
again.
Kelly,
Yep.
because of the quality of the project, those kind of people, they don't get involved because they like Kelly Malcolm. They get involved because
Sadly, no, but
they
but they, they
they
like
like Kelly Malcolm
they
and they
like the
like his
project.
project,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like they get offers all the time to be on. Even I get offered board positions quite often, Alan, and it's you got to be picky. You can't be on too many. You can't dilute your time, which is a precious commodity in and of itself. So you got to put focus on things that you think are winners, right?
And that's something that investors can pay attention to too, Kelly, because what I've noticed over my career is that good projects have a way of being a magnet for good people. You find a good project, and you know, good people tend to want to be involved, and you've got that on the operations side with your three key guys, plus on the board of directors. I mean, Tony McCooch built Kirkland from nothing to a $14 billion takeover.
Yep.
Buckins was a founder of Kinross, and Kinross moved from a small little junior to a major mining
Monster.
company, I guess you can call them now. Richard Patricio, that he was involved with NextGen, who's the big success out in Saskatchewan for the greatest uranium project that there is on the planet.
Well, you
Uh,
talk about cash machine. I know you say that term when you talk about high grade. Look at I don't know if you've looked into next gen, but you certainly should to do a dive. The cash that will be generated from that thing is ludicrous. The
Insane.
content. I know, like when you talk to McEwen, Rob, he always brings up the cash generation at his big copper
Opal.
project in Argentina.
Yeah.
Look at next gen, and it's like holy Moses when you do the gold equivalent. It's incredible.
It's like you're producing at $100 an ounce and you're producing 1 million ounces a year, and
It's crazy.
it's just nuts.
Yeah. And they just
Whether
got
they can
permits.
get
So
it
that's a
over,
big
it's
discussion anyways, but it's
yeah.
a wonderful project.
Well, okay, so then you built up you got the project, really great project. You got it at a great timing. So you got it at a really good price.
Mhm.
And then you built a team around well, you had the nucleus of you, Ian, and the key team operations guys, if you will. And then
Yep.
you built the board around it. But you still had a hair on the dog, which was Waterton. And fortunately, you and me and Rob McEwen got together to tell the story of um, Borealis, and he actually knew about the project. I think his geologist had looked at it in the past, and when we presented the story to him, he saw the hair on the dog, which was Waterton, and asked us if he could take the whole position. And
Yep.
I did my magic on my side, and you did your magic on your side, and we brought Rob McEwen and Waterton to an agreement.
Yep.
Waterton's out, Rob McEwen's in. Another endorsement to the
That was really great. Yeah, no, I agree. That was fantastic.
yeah, another great endorsement to the. You don't get Rob to jump in like that unless it's a high quality project.
Yeah, he's not an insider. Unlike Sprott, for example, who's an insider on many names in terms of better than 9.9% ownership. You don't often see Rob taking that big of a stake, and he's about 16% on BOGO as we speak.
So that's sort of how we got to here, and we've talked about this a lot in the past. Well, not you and me have talked about it a lot, not so much in front of the camera,
Yep.
but when Kelly first brought this project to me to look at, what excited me was two key things. I think Google Earth is like one of my favorite exploration tools. When I can see things on Google Earth, it tells me a lot about a project. And so the first thing I could notice was there is a big alteration zone. So when the metals bearing fluids interact with the country rock, it chemically alters that. So when you have a big 20 square mile alteration zone, it tells you that there's probably a really big system that pump, pumped up into that caused that alteration.
Yep.
The other thing I noticed was that there was a series of pits coming down the mountain and out into the valley, covered area, and they also were right beside a structure. And so they followed that structure. So when I looked at the big alteration, I also saw, oh wow, there's a structure there, and the pits are all along the structure. So I got really excited when I seen that structures, parallel structures, cutting right through that alteration.
Yeah, I that on the regional scale for sure. That's what got me very excited as well.
Kelly, are you getting ready? Are we getting a little long in the tooth on this interview? Should
No, no,
we
no, sorry. I just I've been getting
call?
I'll, yeah, it's no worries. Let's carry on, buddy. I
Okay,
just had to push that one away. Been
okay,
waiting for one particular phone call, so I just don't wanted to make sure I don't miss that one.
no.
Uh,
And so when I was looking at these pits, I noticed like they were small, bigger, bigger, biggest. The biggest one was actually not in the alteration. It was in the covered area, and it was the biggest one, and it was the highest grade. And
yeah.
so that told me that that alteration also extends out into the covered area.
Yep. It absolutely does. And there's little sniffs from some a little bit of historic drilling that was done um in the late 80s. There is gold confirmed out in that vast just I'll pull up my background so you can see I just did this for Microsoft Teams. I don't have it
What's our Zoom? We're on
on
Zoom.
Zoom, but I'll pull it up right now and then we can see what this pediment looks like because I just did this yesterday.
So when I saw that, that told me that, okay, not only is that rock that you can see outcropping and showing this big alteration, but what's beside it could be just as big or even bigger. And oh, there you go.
There you go. So that's all the pediment. So there's some waste rock from not waste rock, but dump rock from what's the JRCD area. And then as far as the eye can see in the background is that pediment. And then you can see little ridges of some outcropping material, but that's all covered and that's all covering what I think has the potential to host some serious gold mineralization. It's also a beautiful place in the world if you look at what a great spot to work that is every day with the mountains all
Oh,
around you.
wow. And so is that the mountains on the right hand side that is where the alteration is, Kelly?
No, it's all behind. So if I was to look backwards, that's where. So we're looking completely south at that pediment right now. Behind us in this photo, behind us is an area called JRCD, which is the western portion of the historic mining.
Yeah.
It's that other trend, Allan. So we have the main trend you were just pointing to, where you have Freedom Flats, Borealis, Deep Ore Flats, Northeast Ridge, etc. And then there's those two little pits that occur up to the northwestern portion. That's where we are.
Okay. Okay. So wide open. I mean, when I see massive alteration, I see that it goes into the covered area. I just see a big, big system. That got me excited. But you also sent me a paper, a couple papers on scientific papers about the project that, what stood out immediately from that was the comparison to Yanacocha, which is South America's greatest gold mine.
Yeah.
And I did my homework on Google there too. I went down to Yanacocha. I looked at its alteration and the series of pits, and then I measured it and brought it back up to Borealis, and I saw that's not just geological hopes and dreams. There's reason to talk about it in the context of Yanacocha.
Yeah, there's we briefly chatted about well, not briefly, we did it in a reasonable amount of detail last time we chatted, but there are some really compelling geological similarities. Um, the geological setting, sort of the timing, the emplacement of mineralization around certain structures. So there's a lot of compelling reasons to compare the two. Although, Alan, we did just say that you're not supposed to compare things to others and look at them in isolation. But they are they're I think it's a wonderful, compelling, um, and certainly intriguing comparison between the two.
Well, the reason I do it in that instance, Kelly, is because I'm trying to see if they're talking in geological hopes and dreams or if it actually stands up and on the basics. Yeah, you got big alteration like at Yanacocha. You got these oxide pits like at Yanacocha. You're looking for sulfides below the oxides like at Yanacocha. So it's more of an investigation of the veracity of their claims.
Yeah, it's a published paper, so there has to be some validity to it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you that it's really really intriguing to me for sure.
Okay, so wide open exploration, past production. You got infrastructure rich, target rich. This is the foundation of Borealis mining.
Yes.
And talk about what you plan to do on the Borealis, the foundational project of Borealis.
We hope to do what we will do is we intend to start generating revenue on a consistent basis, um, working on a kind of on a plan to get the mine up and running in the relative near term. We also will start by crushing our stockpile of ore. We will do a lot of drilling across the property. We don't need to do much in terms of geophysics or really much geochemistry, although we will continue to map and understand the project. And we hope to make some big, juicy new discoveries on the property. So lots of things to look forward to on Borealis proper. We also we but and we're also looking to expand operations of the company through purchases or option
Okay,
agreements.
hold on. That now you're
Oh,
getting in, you're going from Borealis to the business plan. I want to talk about
okay. Focus
Borealis.
solely on Borealis. Yep.
So you've got a stockpile. So you've got some untreated material on the heap leach. Beside the heap leach, you've got a stockpile of material that's never been crushed, never been leached. So you can generate some capital out of that. And then you've got the potential to expand on some of the known deposits. I see a lot of alteration there inside the pits that looks to me like they can be expanded in certain directions. And then you've got your oxide targets and your sulfide targets to drill as well. Did I get that all right?
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. You've definitely got it correct. Yes.
But where you're different than a lot of other juniors, Kelly, is that, for example, you've already poured some gold out of the heap leach, and then you can pour some more gold out of what's sitting on the stockpile. It's never been treated, never
That's
been
right.
crushed.
Yeah, and simple. That's an easy exercise. You literally crush the rock, put it on the pad, put cyanide on it, recover gold. But the easiest ounces you can get, aside from the stuff that was never treated on the leach pad, and we have done some cyanidation there and recovered. We will be recovering the majority of the gold that's not been treated on the leach pad. Next up, stockpile crushing, and that should lead the way to resumption of mining operations.
Not many juniors can say that, Kelly. That if they
I
have
would say
something, they're
less
usually
than 3% probably of the TSX venture can say that.
because
That's a big statement, 5% anyways.
most juniors that have something good, they're 5 to 10 years away from ever being able to get money out of it because they got to go through all the permitting and then build all the infrastructure.
Exactly.
You got the plug and play.
Plug and play, baby. I love it. Yes.
Okay, so before we go, I know you're a busy guy, Kelly. The business plan also really excited me, and it's excited me for many years, Kelly, because I saw in the 2001 to 2011 gold bull market
Mhm.
that the majors came in and basically wiped out the mid tiers, bought all the mid tiers,
Yeah.
uh, bought all the high quality junior miners, and a lot of the exploration stories. So basically, what they did, Kelly, is they took out of the pipeline or the food chain really important parts, which is your mid tiers and your small miners, because
Literally mining. Yes.
those companies they would look at projects that are not big enough for the majors, but they
Yeah.
could be company makers for a junior miner or a mid tier. So they kind of created a vacuum in that. And I've been talking about this for 10 years that
Mm.
this vacuum is waiting for companies to move into it and look at projects that are not big enough for a major, but certainly could be a company making or a company building asset for a smaller company. And that's what you plan. That's part of your business plan, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So looking for high margin ounces at a relative low cost that have near term extractability and economic studies that show profitability. And there's a few different places to look for those. And I don't, but maybe it was you, I can't remember who I was speaking with that had the question of where do you get the best value at this point in the market? um, whether it's from producers, whether it's from project generators, whether it's from existing companies, whether it's from private landholders. And the person, like maybe it was you, said like the private guys are probably the cheapest, right? And the answer is no, it's the opposite of that, but it shows the discount that the market's attributing to some of these projects right now. So the public companies are probably the cheapest ones, just because the cost of capital is so high, dilution is so rampant, that these things are trading criminally undervalued almost in some cases. And the other ones that are really interesting, and I learned this at Beaver Creek, meeting with Beaver Creek conference, just for anyone's knowledge. The neat thing about that conference is you meet with investors, you meet with mining companies, so potential acquisition partners or whatever, and also with bankers and the financier type people. So you get to meet a mix of the whole industry essentially. So it's really tailored to explorers and early stage developers. But meeting with the producers and saying, yeah, we're not really interested in selling, we're not really interested in partnering, but rather what assets do you have that don't meet your criteria? All of them just said they opened up the briefcase and said, look, we've got this one, this one, this one. Let's take a look, see if there's interest. So there's projects abound, and that also comes from what you mentioned before, that in that last bull run, there was so many acquisitions that occurred that a lot of these majors have a bunch of projects that are just collecting dust and looking for potential operators for them. So we intend to be pretty active on the M&A side of things. We want to consolidate. Many of our major shareholders are very supportive of that idea. Um, as you mentioned, there's too many companies out there, too many projects out there that it's you need to do some of this consolidation. Not only does it bring down, um, certainly if you're looking at a mining company with a single asset, and you look at two or three or four companies all operating kind of a similar style mine with similar style returns, with similar geographic location, and then you look at the G&A of each of those four companies, you certainly could dramatically decrease the cost, increase profitability by putting those things together. And that's been a common theme that many of the kind of mining billionaires have talked about for forever. As long as I've been in the industry, everyone consolidation. No one really seems to want to consolidate sometimes. But yeah, it
Pulling the
should.
trigger. It's easy to come up with a theory, not so easy to pull the trigger. But you touched on something
Yeah.
there that I think is important for investors to look at in that, you know, a lot of that mergers and acquisition stuff that was done in the 2001 to 2011, the strategy was bigger is better. And now that their efforts to turn bigger is better actually turned into a big group of projects over there that are collecting dust that we acquired. So I don't think bigger is better. I think better is better. And when I talk about better is better, I'm talking about projects that have modest capex, that have high internal rate of returns, which means high profitability, and they can pay back the capex really quickly. That's what I love when I look at a pro company, when it's a miner, that's what I look for, Kelly. I look at something like Agnico Eagle, and why I've been pounding the table on them so much is that they have a high IRR. It doesn't cost them. They keep their cost under control, and they're doing moves to increase their production and actually decrease their costs.
Yeah.
So these are the metrics that I think is better. Not I could care less how much ounces they produce compared to their peers. It's about, do they make money?
Yeah, and the other one, I know you hate NPV. We've talked about this a few times, but the other metric that is interesting to look at is NPV versus CapEx, and looking at the ratio between the two of them, because it's basically telling you you're going to make X number of dollars, it's going to cost you X number to build, which it's a good metric to look at as well. Essentially, it's the payback period just in a numerical format.
Right. But you are basing it on a discounted price and you're
Yeah,
trying
so there's
to,
that. Yeah, I know
yeah,
we've waxed at a lot.
poetic.
Yeah,
So
beyond
that
poetic.
did I kind of encapsulate what you also look for in a project, Kelly?
Yeah, we're looking for number one, things that I can afford and things that I have our team and company and shareholders, et cetera, have the ability to finance. I don't know why we would look at something that's too big for us to bite. You get into hot water. That's happened to a number of companies. I won't bring up anyone, but over the years you can see really big ambitions, and then when they go to execute, they're like, holy crow, we need to go raise $3 billion. Where does that come from? And yeah, so we're looking at things that aren't big enough, certainly for major mining cos, uh, largely because they just wouldn't improve their balance sheet. They wouldn't necessarily materially even affect it, and just going to be a drain of resources. Whereas things for us that could produce 20 to 60 to 80, even up to 100,000 ounces, that's still too small for a major mining co. Um, could be materially game changing for us. You put two, three, four of those things together, all of a sudden you're up in mid-tier mining company category with a de-risked asset portfolio, in that you have asset diversification, so you don't become Victoria Gold or Pure Gold or um, any of the other ones that when your single asset
Crushed and
gets
burned.
into hot water, you're toast. That's the end of you. Um, and ambitions and hopes and dreams were all great, and projects were solid, and things happen. So it's diversification of assets, not a bad thing. And also, if you have all those different projects operating under one G&A umbrella, you bring down your all-in sustaining cost per ounce produced,
Yeah.
um, increase profitability, and yeah, that's kind of where our head's at the moment. And right now we're mostly solely focused on Nevada projects. We're looking a little bit into the surrounding states, but really not looking too much further afield, um, outside of the Great Basin area at the moment.
So when you're describing all that, it reminds me, I grew up in the Vancouver and I grew up in the business in Vancouver actually. And one of my favorite Vancouver companies as a miner was Teck. And Teck did what you're talking about. They started out putting together a group of projects, and then that blossomed. They did a great job of doing that, and that blossomed into them becoming the household name they are today in mining. So I get a sense, a flavor of young tech when you're
Yeah,
talking about that.
I'll take the comparison all day, all night.
Good.
That's
Well,
that's
and the
certainly not a
other
bad one to be compared to, but thanks.
closing comment I'll make, Kelly, is that um, when I hear you talk about rocks and the business, you're thinking of it. Most guys in your position are they've got dreams and visions of grandeur in their minds, but excuse me. Oh, oh, you look at
Bless
it,
you.
you look at it from a rocks guy who wants to build a business.
I still have dreams of grandeur, I can assure you. But yeah, we're looking looking to build a genuine, bona fide business that makes money for shareholders. That's the focus of what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Kelly. Did you have a closing comment?
No, not today. We've exhausted my brain today, Alan. But
Okay.
thanks everyone for listening. I really appreciate it, and thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Well, I think you got a great story, Kelly, and from a lot of different elements. So I'm sorry that I put your brain through the grinder there, but you really
Oh,
are.
it's a great discussion, and I appreciate you having me on again. I
Yeah,
really
I
do.
we started out talking about, your experiences and how that can help investors, and we closed it off by talking about what you're trying to build with Borealis, and I think the combination is quite impressive, Kelly, and I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences with my audience.
Thank you so very much.
All righty. I'm going to close it off. There you go, folks. Borealis Mining. It's only been trading for a few months. It's been built on a foundation as a private company to have a lot of success as a public company, which is I've never seen such a story in my 30 years in the business. And they're executing on their project. They're drilling. They're pouring some gold. They're doing other efforts to pour more gold. They're looking at other projects, and they have a great business plan all around. And I just don't think you can find many companies like Borealis Mining out there. And they also have uh, a really cool stock symbol. It's BOGO, or BOGO. And my dog is called Gogo. And so I think of Gogo BOGO. And it always gives me a nice smile. So, as always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. They're a sponsor of my work. So, obviously, I'm biased, but whether a company is a sponsor or a pick, they all have to fall through the same filters that I built up during my career, having worked with a lot of really smart people in geology, geochemistry, and geophysics. And Kelly has a lot of those talents, but I really appreciate his business mind that, it's time to build from the next wave of junior miners that could be mid tiers. So do that homework and have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.